I'm just starting a couple seconds early to get everything set up. We do have a few more people joining us today, so I'm maybe going to wait another 30 seconds to a minute and then I'll get started. Okay, I think we can get started. It's 1:01, so this is being recorded. So if anybody comes a little bit late, or even for those of you who are here now, I am going to be sending out a recorded copy of this whole webinar following today. So let's just get right into it. So hi everybody, my name is Sophie and I'm part of the customer success team based in Toronto. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's introductory webinar, which is part of our October Workflows series. So today our introductory webinar will have a particular focus on direct bookers. So we'll be talking about creating vendors, sending email confirmations, and while we'll still be going over all of the main Umapped features, our focus today will be on optimizing the trip publisher for features that most benefit direct bookers. So during today's webinar, you will learn how Umapped is helping leading global brands and travel advisors engage with their customers throughout their entire travel journey. By using our collaborative experience platform, you can deliver interactive, branded, and consolidated mobile proposals and itineraries with relevant content and messaging for your clients. You'll also see how the platform maximizes productivity and streamlines your business workflow. So during today's 35-minute webinar, we'll start with an overview of the client experience. So taking a look at how your clients will receive and view their trips online, via the mobile app, and as a PDF. Next, we'll demo Umapped's online trip building platform for travel professionals, which is called the Trip Publisher. And we'll finish today's webinar with a review of the training resources and the support available to you, making sure to save some time for a live Q&A. Just before we begin, I want to ensure that everybody has access to a complimentary trial. So if you haven't already signed up for a trial, you can visit umapped.com/trial, or just come to our main page, umapped.com, and click on the sign up button at the top right corner of the page, and then complete the trial form. After submitting your request, our customer success team will send you a confirmation email with your account credentials and login instructions. All right, so let's begin our live demo by reviewing the client experience. So when ready, your client's trips are initially delivered by email and are available in 3 different formats. Clients can access their trips online, as a PDF, and via the Umapped mobile app. All formats of the trip are branded for you and include your company logo and contact details. So this in front of me is an example of the email that your clients will receive, giving them access to their trip. Your branding and contact details will be displayed at the bottom of the email, just kind of in line with the different buttons they can use to access their trip. So that's all within the first same glance. This email is all your client needs in order to access their trip. They can click on the View Your Trip button in order to access the web view of their trip, as well as the trip PDF, or click on the App Store or Google Play Store icons in order to download the Umapped mobile app. So let's start by taking a look at the web view. This View Your Trip button opens a dynamic trip link that could be bookmarked and then accessed at any time. When your clients are accessing the web view for the very first time, they'll just need to enter their email address in order to validate that they are actually a traveler on this trip. So it's just an initial security feature. The first thing your clients will see in their day-by-day itinerary is your branding right at the top. So your branding and contact information is always displayed front and center across all of these different ways of accessing their trip. And there's also a little download button right next to the App Store links, where they can download the PDF copy of their trip, of which we have two different versions. There's either the full version or the print-friendly option, which just doesn't have any images. So I'm actually going to download the PDF, and then I'm going to come back to that in a few moments. Your clients can view all of their day-by-day trip details and any important information that you've included in their trip just by scrolling down. The amount of details or information in the trip is always up to you based on your clients and the type of trip. All of the photos that have been added here have been added from one of the many image libraries available in the trip publisher. We have hotel and cruise photos already preloaded for many properties and cruise lines, as well as a photo library that's licensed for commercial reuse. Also note this little chat icon which displays on trip segments. This is the Messenger feature. When enabled, it allows for real-time chat and notifications, which your clients can access on the web and mobile app trip views. When your clients chat with you using the Messenger, you'll also receive an email notification, and you can even reply directly from your email. You can also access these kinds of chat messages from within the trip publisher itself, and your reply will display into the chat window, kind of much like these. On flight segments, if I go up, this is also where your clients will receive any day of flight notifications. So any gate changes, cancellations, delays, anything that has been sent by our third-party flight tracker 24 hours prior to departure will be accessible right here. You'll also notice this little blue plus button located at the bottom right corner of the page. This is the Traveler Collaboration feature that is available for both the web view as well as the mobile app. So this allows your clients to build and personalize their trip details with information including dinner reservations, trip notes if they have any, or any activities that they've booked on their own. So while they can't edit or delete any of the segments that you have added, those are frozen in place, this allows your clients to consolidate all of their information in one place with one consolidated view of their trip. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the tabs at the top of the screen up here. So beside the itinerary tab, the Documents tab is where any supporting documentation for the trip is available. So this can include PDF attachments like vouchers and e-tickets, any destination content, or any other important travel information that your clients may need to reference. Beside that, the trip map will pinpoint all of the different destinations that your clients are traveling to. And there is also a trip calendar where clients can come to view a calendar view of the trip with the option to sync to a personal Google Calendar, iCal, or Outlook calendar. The web view itself is mobile responsive and will resize to fit to whatever device your client is using. So they can access this from a phone, a tablet, or a desktop. Otherwise, of course, for anyone that's a little less tech savvy, the PDF that I downloaded earlier provides a printable option for your customers who might still prefer paper. There are 4 different design templates that you can select from in your preferences in the trip publisher, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. And lastly, I also have a mobile simulator on my computer. I'm just going to pull that up just a second. Perfect. So your clients also have the option, as I mentioned earlier, to download the Umapped mobile app from either the App Store or the Google Play Store so that they can view their trips on their smartphones while they're on the go or in destination. One of the great benefits of the mobile app is that trip details are available even when your client's phone is offline. So even if they don't have Wi-Fi or any network connection. Additionally, if I go into a flight or a hotel segment, you'll notice that they can access directions as well as live weather reporting. And again, at the very top of any of my trips, let me just go into one. You'll notice that your branding and contact details are always at the very, very top, along with any of the different methods or social media links that you've added in order to get in contact with you. All right, so now I'm just going to go back to my main screen. Just a second. Perfect. So now that I've shown you what your clients will receive, I'm going to actually show you around the trip publisher itself, which is Umapped's trip building application for travel professionals. So this is where you would come to build and edit proposals and itineraries. To log in, go to pub-trip.umapped.com/login and bookmark this link for future visits. Okay, so I'm just going to log in to my account. Perfect. So once you're logged in, you're going to be taken initially to your dashboard. On the top right is where your account details will be displayed. If you click on your user details, which is this little silhouette icon, you'll see My Account, Submit Feedback, Send Us an Email, and Log Out. The two in the middle are just how you can get in touch with a member of our customer success team. But for any new users, I usually recommend selecting My Account in order to update your user profile, as these are all of the details which are going to display on the client experience. So the phone number, any social media links you've added, any website information, etc. And this is also where you can come to change your password. You'll also notice there's a couple other tabs just beside user profile. If you click on the second tab, which is called Preferences, this is where you can update some of those account preferences that I mentioned earlier. So that includes that traveler messaging aspect, the traveler collaboration feature, flight notifications, etc. And this is also where you can come to choose between those 4 different PDF layouts that I talked about. And lastly, if you click on Plans, this is just where you can come to view and update any billing details or download any invoices. All right, so on your dashboard, which you can return to by clicking on Back to Trips, you can view all of the trips that you have created within this default tab, My Trips. Your dashboard is also where you can search and access all of your past and present trips. Depending on your plan type, you may also be able to view all of the trips that have been created within your company by selecting Company Trips. Selecting the filter icon on the top right corner, right beside the search bar, not top right, but right about here, is where you can come to filter your trips by the date. So you could choose active or a past trip if you're looking through old trips you've created, by the trip status, so whether pending or published, and the creation date of the trip. So whether the trip was created today, a week ago, or even a month ago. And then of course you can always also search by a keyword just by putting a keyword into the search bar, and then voila. And then to remove these, you just X out of the filters. Clicking on the little menu icon in the top left will reveal some other tabs, such as the library and admin tabs. From within the library, templates, documents, vendors, and tags are covered in some of our more advanced webinars and allow you to save profiles for various suppliers, as well as content for guides and other templated notes. Although today we are going to talk briefly about vendors, so we'll be coming back to this. I would also like to highlight the support button that you see when you click on the menu icon. So by clicking on support, you can gain access to our online knowledge portal, where you can also send questions to our customer success team and look up any instructions for any of the different features that I've mentioned today. Okay, let's close that up. All right, so let's go back to our trips dashboard, and let's click on the plus new button at the top right of the dashboard to start the trip building process. So enter a name for your trip, as well as the travel start and end dates. So we'll go actually next October. Let's do October 2021, 1st to the 13th. And you also have the option to add trip tags, which is a great way to apply labels to your trips so that you can easily search for them later on your dashboard. So for instance, in this trip, I might be going to London, Rome, and Barcelona. So I'll add London and Barcelona as tags, so I can easily just add them to my search bar later on. And then we're going to click Create Trip to save this new trip. On the main page of your trip, you will see a large gray thumbnail image. Click on this image in order to add your cover photo. We always recommend adding a cover photo as that's the background image that will display in the traveler email, as well as the different formats of the client experience that we just reviewed together. So there are a couple different options for adding a photo. The first is by searching the image library. So this is a free library of licensed images that is available to all users. The second is searching the web using a keyword and a website URL. Or you can always upload your own photo if you have something on your desktop that you think would work really well. So for our sample today, I'm going to search the web by entering a keyword. So I'll put in London and then a website URL. I'm going to look up unslash.com because they have a lot of really nice free for commercial use photos. So if you're ever looking for a generic background photo, I really recommend Unsplash. I'll just take that one and then upload it and then voila. And you can always change that later on just by clicking anywhere on the banner. Okay, so in today's demo, I'm going to highlight how you can easily consolidate bookings from a variety of supported suppliers for email confirmation forwarding, as well as how to create vendors for future use. We'll also demo how to create your own trip segments, how to import from partnered suppliers, and finally how to share or send a trip to your travelers. So I'm going to begin on this left-hand side and then gradually make my way over to the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to skip over travelers just for now because, like I said, we're going to come to that towards the end, and we're going to go straight to import booking. So import bookings is where you can access the different system integrations available. So this is where you can import from your GDS PNRs, your client-based res cards, and access any booking confirmation emails that you've forwarded into the trip publisher. You can also import from Sabre Tripcase, Travelport, and WorldSpan by selecting the second tab, Pnr Import. If you're not set up with a GDS or you book directly with the airlines, the hotels, a DMC, or a tour operator, you can import bookings from a select number of supported suppliers into your booking inbox by email. So you can find access to the list of supported suppliers from a couple different attached lists in our support portal. I'm just going to go to it right now, and I'll include this in today's email as well. So importing bookings from email, importing supplier, importing books for remote. Perfect. So at the bottom of this support article on our support portal, importing bookings from email, you'll see two attached lists of supported suppliers for email forwarding. So this includes suppliers like Delta Vacations, different airlines, different hotels. This includes, sites like Airbnb, different booking methods like Expedia, different car rental services, and more. So if you ever have the opportunity, once I send out this email later today, try to cross-reference some of the suppliers you usually book with these two lists, because you might surprise yourself and find a couple different ones that you didn't know were supported suppliers for email forwarding. And what this means is that if I have an email confirmation from a company like Amadeus or Delta Vacations, which I will actually pull up as an example. Let's try this. So let's see this one, for example. Somebody tried this earlier today, a Delta Vacations email confirmation, and it has a hotel in it and some travel insurance, etc. You can actually take this email confirmation itself, come up to the top. I'm using Google, Gmail, obviously, but you can use any email service. And I'm going to forward just the email confirmation. So I'm going to take out this extraneous detail. So let's take out the signatures. And I'm going to forward it to import@umapped.com. And just to note, I am forwarding it from the same email address that's associated with my Umapped account. If I was forwarding it from an entirely different email address that had nothing to do with my Umapped account, instead of import@umapped.com, I would forward this to import plus my username. So whatever my username is, Maybe in this case, my username is travel advisor. So that's my username at umapped.com. So the only distinction between these, and again, if you're ever unsure, all of the instructions are in the support article that I'll send out today. So if you're ever unsure, the difference between it is if you're sending it from the email that's associated with your Umapped account, just send it to import@umapped.com because we'll obviously know from the email what account it's meant for. But if we don't have an account with that email address, just put a plus and then your username so that our system knows what account to actually put this email confirmation into. So I'm just going to send it to import@umapped.com and I'm going to send it out. And then this should usually take somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes. And then once it is parsed properly, you're going to notice it in the body of the booking inbox here, kind of like this. 1 second. Oh, flight 2021. Kind of like this. So it's going to appear as this little segment. This is received from Sabre, but it looks exactly the same for an email confirmation. That's why I'm using this as an example, because I didn't want to wait up to 10 minutes. Just as a quick note, Priscilla had asked, does the email have to be in HTML format? Some vendors send only the PDF confirmation. It does have to be within the body of the email itself in the HTML format like this. And a PDF attachment isn't going to parse through. And likely if they're only sending the PDF, they're probably not one of the supported suppliers on the list anyway, because all of these different supported suppliers should send you the HTML booking confirmation, not just a PDF. So I'll send this out in an email. You can also look this up right now if you just want to cross-check anything here. But it has to be within the body of the email, otherwise it won't come through properly, because we're actually scanning this entire email, the actual body of it, and we're seeing that there's a hotel, and we're seeing that there's a insurance. And then once you add it to your trip, it's going to create discrete segments for a flight or for a hotel or for an insurance segment. So we're actually scanning through that email and parsing out everything inside of it, all of the info, because we know that this is for the check-in and this is for the checkout. But we don't have that same reader with a PDF. So that's the first thing I just want to mention. Again, I will send out all of the instructions on how to do this in an email. If you have any questions, you can always email us at support@umapped.com because this can be a little bit tricky. But I would definitely take the time to cross-reference some suppliers you might use with these two lists, as there are quite a lot on them, particularly different methods of booking like Expedia, Airbnb, Amadeus, etc. And if you're ever not sure if something's actually added into your booking inbox or not, you can always come to your dashboard. So I'm going to leave this trip a little bit. I'm going to come to the booking inbox on the dashboard. And you'll see that on the dashboard, there's a second tab called Email API Log. Clicking on this will show you when something was successfully received, what was the subject line of the email, how many segments were extracted. So I can see here that this one was received a while ago on April 8th, this Expedia travel confirmation, and it was successfully parsed, so that's great. That means it actually created properly. And I had 2 segments in that email. So if you're ever not sure where something is, or if you know that you forwarded something but you can't find it in the booking inbox, always come to your email API log, because that will tell you if it went through or not. Sometimes this might say unrecognized format, and you might need to reach out to support, or it just might not be one of our supported suppliers. So this is a way that you can always reference what you just imported, forwarded into the trip publisher. And again, let me just go back to my trip, close that, and let's go to Europe Adventure. Again, once you do receive it, I'm just going to show you an example. Again, this is with Sabre, but it looks exactly the same with my email confirmations. There's really no difference. You'll be able to view more details by clicking the drop-down arrow, and then add it to your trip just by clicking on the little options icon to the right of the booking confirmation. and click Add to Trip. Perfect. So now I'm going to go into my trip so I can see some of the things that I imported. Please note, by the way, that bookings forwarded by email are not going to update automatically because, of course, this isn't a direct connection from the original booking to the trip publisher. So if there are any important information changes that need to be made, please re-upload or update the booking manually in the trip publisher. So if by any chance, when you're looking at the booking inbox in the email API log, you see that it's here, but it says unrecognized format, there might be a couple different reasons why. One, the email might be unsupported or unrecognized. So if you've emailed from a supplier that's not part of our supported supplier list, it's just not going to be available in the booking inbox because we won't know what to do with it. If the email was altered before forwarding, it's not going to be available in the booking inbox. So that means if when I was sending this, let's say I was forwarding this email in the actual thing, maybe I changed somebody's name, like I changed this to hotels, or I changed hotel name to hotel instead of hotel name. If I messed up the actual format of the booking confirmation, it's not going to be available in my booking inbox because we're not going to be able to properly read the HTML anymore. So try not to make any modifications to the actual confirmation itself. And then lastly, if the email is for a past dated booking, it's not going to be available in the booking inbox because only future dated emails are going to appear here. So once the travel date has passed, you're not going to be able to access the booking this way anymore. Perfect. Okay. So if your booking will not import and it doesn't meet any of those negative criteria that I just mentioned, you can always just email us at support@umapped.com for future assistance. It might just be that we need to ask our third-party parser to update the parser for that specific email. So it can always be a quick fix as well. All right, so now let's move on from import bookings to import template. So this I'm not going to get too into because it has to do with templates, but it's quite what it says on the tin here. If you have a template that you've already published and you want to add to this trip, you can easily do so just by searching up the template. So if I look up one, here's a couple different templates that I published already. I can choose a start date and then add this template into my trip. Following that, suppliers is where you can import bookings or content from a list of partnered tour operators or DMCs. So you can come to like get your classic vacation bookings, project expedition bookings, and more. And then moving on, destination content is where you can access different destination content providers that are available to you. So Umapped is partnered with AFAR and W Cities, giving you access to curated guides and recommendations for over 500 destinations around the world. So for AFAR, you can either add a whole destination guides or just specific recommendations. Select from the list of trip destinations or click search by city name to manually enter one. And then we're going to search. So I searched London from the list. And if I like everything that's in this guide, from here I can click on Add to Trip, choose a date. So let's say the end of my trip because I prefer to have the larger destination guides towards the bottom of my itinerary. And then we're just going to confirm that date. For W Cities, you can select a destination and content type from the source drop-down menu and then click Search. From here, just select the checkbox to the right of whatever content you wish to include, and then click Add to Trip. So I'll put this one on October 5th. All right, so there are also several different ways that you can attach PDF, Word, or library documents to a trip. The first is by selecting Documents. Select File Attachments, and then click the Attach File button. So I'm going to add a sample voucher from my desktop. There we go. And attach that. And if I need to preview or remove my document later on, I can always click on the ellipses for more options. You can also, like I mentioned a little earlier, create, store, and manage your own content within your personal library. So for our sample today, I'm going to add a city guide for London that was previously created by coming back to my first tab, Content from Library, and clicking on Add Document. From here, I'm going to search London in the keyword search, and then I'm going to select the document and add that to my trip. Moving on, you can click on Calendar for a calendar view of the trip. And lastly, Settings is where you can come to view and edit trip details. Select the ellipses to duplicate a trip, create a new template from a trip, or delete the trip altogether. And the second tab, Audit Log, is where you can come to view a history of actions for a particular trip. So I can see who's updated something and at what time. All right, so let's head back to our main page. And now let's go a little into how to manually create your own segments. So in the bottom right corner of the trip, you can click the Add icon to create your own segments, add trip notes, and any other important information, like a cruise or insurance. We already have thousands of vendor profiles within the trip publisher itself in our public database for accommodations and cruises that include photos, addresses, and contact information. So as an example of that, let's add a hotel in Rome. I'm going to select accommodation and then search for my hotel. So in this case, I'm going to look up the Rome Cavaliere Waldorf Astoria from October 7th to the 13th. So as you can see, this hotel already has a vendor profile created that includes information about the hotel, as well as different photos of the property. So I don't need to add any of this myself. It's already within our public database. So all I need to do is add my specific traveler information, such as the check-in and check-out dates and times, and then add that to my trip. And then in this segment, I can add a couple other details like a room, I can add pricing info, I can add details, etc. And anything that I don't add just won't appear in the traveler perspective. Before we go into other kinds of segments you can add, let's also take a brief pause and look at how you can save profiles for hotels and other kinds of bookings in your personal vendors. If you frequently work with the same companies or cruise lines or tour operators or etc., all of those different things that aren't part of our public database or on the list of supported suppliers for email forwarding, so if they're nowhere anywhere here, you can always add these profiles to your personal vendor list for future use later on. So at the moment, there are two different ways to manage and create vendor profiles. Number one, you can create and customize vendor profiles from within the vendor tab. So by coming to library and clicking on vendors, so you could do it directly from within here. Or you can customize and create vendor profiles from within a trip or a template. So let's start by talking a little bit more about option number one, which is creating and customizing vendor profiles from this vendor tab here, so from within the database itself. This personally is the most convenient if you want to create or customize many vendor profiles at once. If you're new to Umapped, you may want to consider enhancing profiles from your top list of vendors. For example, if you primarily book with certain hotel chains or locations, you can take the time now to enhance their profiles or create them from scratch, and then skip this step later on when you go to create templates and trips for your clients. Your most used vendors are already going to be done and have all of the important information already available in the trip publisher. So I would always take the time now just to create the vendors you know you're going to need. Now you may ask, when then is it the best use for option number two, which is creating and customizing vendor profiles from inside of a trip itself? This is simply the easiest way to enhance or create vendor profiles during the trip building workflow. So as you're adding segments to a trip, you can edit a existing vendor profile or create a brand new one from within the trip instead of having to return to the vendor database to make changes. All right, so let's go into my trip that I was just in. So Europe Adventure for the Smiths. And let's quickly add a vendor together using option number 2, since the first option is a little more straightforward. For example, if I wanted to send my travelers to the Boutique Hotel Rome, let's try to add an accommodation for the Boutique Hotel Rome. Boutique Hotel Rome. And not this one, let's say it's actually called Boutique Hotel Rome. And let's say that it's not part of any of the suggestions that I receive from the public database or my personal database. Instead, I can simply add it on my own. So like I just did, I'm going to navigate to the add icon. I selected accommodation. And from here, I entered Boutique Hotel Rome in the name field. And then rather than clicking on the option, I'm just going to click somewhere else and add my check-in and check-out dates. So let's say the 14th to the 15th. And we're going to add that to my trip. All right, so now we have a hotel segment that doesn't have any address info, it doesn't have any photos or anything like that. So after it's been added, I'm going to have this from this open drawer here, which by the way, you can always open a drawer just by clicking on view details on that segment. That'll open up the drawer. And we're going to click on the little camera icon to the right of the hotel name, which is going to prompt me to add a vendor. Now I can add all of the pertinent address information and the contact and description info. If you want to be able to quickly add all of the information directly from Google Places, we suggest adding the location name to the landmark name right here, and then select from the suggested Google Place listings. So if I look up Boutique Hotel Rome, you're going to notice that there's a bunch of different suggestions. I was just making up Boutique Hotel Rome, but let's say that this is the one that I wanted, the one that's in the metropolitan city of Rome. That's the correct address. And I want to just quickly take all of the contact info and the address info from Google Places so I don't have to manually enter it in myself. I'm just going to click on this suggestion, and then voila, all of that info automatically got added in. And of course, because I'm in charge of all of this, even though I did pull from Google Places, I can still make any edits that I want. So if I don't want any address info, I can take it out, or sorry, contact info, I can take it out. I can add stuff if I'd like. So maybe I want Boutique Hotel. Actually, let's put it here. This is a boutique, I can never spell boutique, hotel in Rome. So I can always customize this, even though I did pull it from Google Places. There's no reason I can't just change things as much as I'd like. And then to save this info, I'm just going to click on Save. And after saving that vendor, you've officially added this hotel to your company's list of vendor profiles. So now I can do whatever I'd like to this. I can click this camera icon again, and I can start to add photos. So let's say I'm going to just look up boutique, or sorry, I'm just going to look up hotels just so I can get some photos. I can say, let's say this is the hotel. I'm going to upload that photo. And now that's going to be saved to the vendor profile as well. So that's just how I could quickly add a vendor directly from within a trip segment to my vendor profile, to my vendor list. So I can still come here, click on the camera icon, edit the profile if I need to make any edits, add photos if I need to add photos. I can reorder photos if I have quite a number here, etc., etc. Right. So to add a cruise, click on the add icon and then select cruise. Enter the ship name, the sailing month and year, and then click the Find Cruises button. So I'm going to look up the Norwegian Epic, October of 2021, Find Cruises. And then from here, just click on whatever is the correct sailing date and itinerary until it grays out like this, and then scroll down to import. And you can also add a trip note. So this feature allows you to add a customized note for your clients that can include detailed links, photos, and embedded videos. So for our sample today, I'm going to add a bon voyage message for my clients. So I selected note, and now I'm going to add a title. Have a fantastic trip. The dates and times are entirely optional depending on the kind of note that you're adding, and then just add your details. So let's say safe travels. And this can be anything. You can make a note for emergency contact info, a packing list, a COVID-19 preparation note, whatever you'd like. These are really up to you. And then if I'd like, I can always select this little hide note button if I want to make the note internal for myself or somebody that I'm collaborating on the trip with, as these kinds of private notes are only visible within the trip publisher itself. And then I'm going to add it to my trip. And then here are all the different interactive elements you can also add to a note. Okay, so let's say that I have everything in my trip that I'm ready, that I wanted, and it's ready to go. At any point during the trip building process, you have the opportunity to publish a trip by selecting the Publish button at the top right corner of the page. Once a trip is published, it is live and all formats of the client experience will be available. So that means the web, the PDF, and the mobile versions. When you are publishing, you do have the option to leave a little note that will display in the traveler email, or you can just go ahead and publish the trip. This trip is dynamic, so you always have the option to make any edits or changes later on. Remember that if there are ever any significant updates, just click on Republish up in the top corner and republish the trip so that any changes will be reflected on your client's view. Okay. So you'll also notice that there's a couple options here right beside the trip name and dates. So you can collaborate, you can invite a collaborator or add a traveler by selecting the little share icon right here. The collaborator feature allows you to share your trip with other travel professionals like suppliers, DMCs, vendors, and tour operators. So the only difference between the traveler button here and the traveler button on the side is that if I happen to be in another page, like if I was doing documents and I wanted to go directly to my travelers, I could go directly there. So it's just a little more convenient if you're in another part of the trip. And now that I am here, I'm going to go ahead and add a traveler by clicking on the Add Traveler button. I just need to add out the client's details, so the email, their first and their last name. I'll just go ahead and do that. And then add traveler. And then once you've added your traveler, your client's going to receive a personalized branded email with all of the information they need in order to access their trip. And now let's go back to the trip and look at the last couple of icons. So you can select the preview icon located just to the right of the share icon to access the web view, as well as the two different PDFs. And finally, the pencil icon will allow you to edit your trip name, trip dates, and any other important information. All right, so today we have viewed all of the different versions of the client experience from the web, the PDF, to the mobile versions, highlighting some benefits and features for the clients, as well as how to build a trip in the trip publisher, reviewing vendor profiles, email confirmations, and more. So you should now be familiar with how to create a trip, but we also have some tools that will help you along the way. Our support portal, which you can access either at pub-support.umapped.com or from directly within the trip publisher by clicking on the menu icon and clicking on support, is where you can come to access a getting started guide, as well as step-by-step instructions for all of the different things I mentioned today. So if you want to know a little more about vendors, there's a support article on vendors. There are also support articles on forwarding email confirmations and more. So all of these different things we talked about are all outlined in detail within the support portal if you ever need to reference anything with screenshots and step-by-step instructions. We also encourage you, if you ever have the time, to sign up for one of our more advanced webinars by coming to the webinar page on our website. You can see we have a couple coming up in a little while on templates and taggings or automating your workflow. And if you ever need to, there's also a spot where you can register for a personalized one-on-one meeting. And this just allows you to have like an actual chat with a member of our customer success team where it's just you and them. So you can ask any questions, or you could bring a specific thing that you weren't able to find in the support portal. And we host these at varying times every single day. So there's always an opportunity for you to jump on, even for just a 30-minute or 20-minute call if you need to. Okay, so I'm also going to be sharing a recording of today's webinar in case anyone has any questions or if I went over anything a little too quick, but I'd like to spend the last 15 minutes or so today just answering any questions live, because I know that there's some already in the chat. So I'm just going to go look at some questions and we're going to go over all of them together. Okay, so the first question that I got was the mobile simulator that I was using, which was, let me just share my full screen. So this mobile simulator right here. I believe it's been about 1.5 years since I downloaded this, but I believe this application is called Xcode, something like that. Is it Xcode? Xcode mobile simulator. Yeah, it's something like that. Xcode, I think iOS simulator, but I downloaded this quite a while ago, and the actual file that's allowing me to use the Umapped mobile app is just a separate file that I have as part of our company, so it's not available anywhere else. Okay, let me just go back here, close that. Another question that I just received was, can you turn off the link to the hotel websites? I don't want to make that part easier on them. All right, so that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. So let's say that I was creating something in the vendor profiles. So if I went to my vendor database, and let's say I'm going to hotels, and I wanted to create a brand new vendor. So let's say this is boutique hotel. Is there an example? Let's do this one right here, the Boutique Hotel Kircher. If I'm taking the information from Google Places, kind of like I am right now, because these are all suggestions from Google Places, it's going to include all of the different information that's in Google Places. So that includes anything like hotel address information, website info, phone numbers, etc. So it is initially going to take all of that info when I'm creating the vendor. You're going to see all that stuff is there, but I can always take anything that was imported from Google Places out. So if I click on that little pencil icon when I'm in my vendor database, or if I re-click on, I'll show you the different ways. I'm just doing it from the database right now, but you can do this from within a trip as well. It's just a slightly different process. But if I come to edit the vendor profile, all I need to do to get rid of that info is come to contact and description and then just delete it. So let's say I don't want to give them any contact information. I just want the address. That's all I'm interested in. I just took it out, and then I'm going to save that. And then voila, that stuff is gone. And you can do that on stuff that's already in the vendor database. There's no reason you can't customize anything that's in our public database. So for instance, let me look up something with the Four Seasons, because Four Seasons for sure is going to be in the public database. So let's take one that has info. Okay, let's take the Four Seasons Hotel Vancouver. I can see it's coming from the system, so it's a public database. And it also has a phone number as the contact info. But if I just want my clients to see the address and I don't want them to have any contact info because I'd rather them do it through me, I can just click on View Details and then edit whatever was coming from that database. So I'll just take out the phone number and then save it as is. And then it's going to say Demo Travel Company instead. So I just have to change it to mine first. 1 sec. If I look it up later on, Four Seasons Vancouver. I think this just might need a minute or two to save because it is coming from the database, but anything that I'm taking out is going to save. And I can also do it from within a trip just by going to, so let's go to something I've already created. So let's say, for instance, the San Clemente Palace, Kempinski. I can click on View Details, edit, not edit, the photo icon right here, edit vendor profile, and then just take out this information. Delete, 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 save. And it's just going to take a couple minutes because it is coming from the database as it switches to your own database, but you can take out any of the info from those as well. Okay, let's just see if there's any more questions before I call it a day today. Okay, so there doesn't appear to be any more questions in the chat or the Q&A. So I am going to end today's webinar here. But if there are any questions that only occur to other people later on today, you can always reach out to us at support@umapped.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So thank you everybody for attending, and I'll be reaching out to you within, at least by the end of the day, with a link to, like I said, those different lists for supported suppliers for email forwarding, as well as the different things that we covered today. So thanks again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.